This is Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets for Digital Marketing Success with Steffen Horst.
Welcome back to Performance Delivered, Insider Secrets to Marketing Success, the podcast where we dive into what is driving results in today's changing marketing landscape. I'm your host, Steffen Horst, and today we are back for episode 3 to talk about SEO skills in the AI era. AI is transforming the way we approach SEO, but human insights remain the anchor that keeps strategies truly effective. Building on the lessons and feedback from episode 2, today we'll shift the focus from quick hacks and metrics to the timeless skills that matter most: listening, clustering, and validating. To help us make sense of it all, I'm joined again by two brilliant minds in the digital marketing space. First, Lindsie Nelson, a marketing strategist who has led digital growth initiatives for both startups and global brands. She brings a sharp real-world lens to how AI influences our thinking about content and customer experience. She's also currently, and for a long time, the head of SEO at Symphonic Digital. And joining her is Andreas Voniatis, a digital marketer with deep expertise in performance media, analytics, and the emerging role of AI in discovery. Andreas has been closely tracking how tools like ChatGPT and Google's AI overviews are changing the way users search and how brands can adapt. Andreas is the founder of the SEO agency Artios. Together, we explore how to fuse AI-driven tactics with classic marketing fundamentals to keep SEO both smart and human. Now, every day, millions of conversations happen online, on Reddit, TikTok, forums, and niche communities. Buried in that chatter are insights that no algorithm alone can surface, but that marketers can turn into strategy. So, Lindsie, how do we separate real human needs from the noise of algorithm-driven chatter?
Yeah, I think it's getting away from what we've been talking about for SEO for years. I feel like even interviewing new SEOs, it's like, well, the algorithm changed. And it's like, if we are optimizing to an algorithm anymore, we're losing, right? Like, I think that conversation of the Google algorithm shifts have to impact what we're doing. Like, as long as you are doing good marketing work, it should translate into SEO, and understanding what humans are saying and how they're talking is really the core of it. And getting really caught up in what algorithm changes are happening, other than the really big things, I think is just, it ends up being way too much information, and we should be more focused on the what are people saying and what's the overall sentiment of specific areas.
Andreas?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point Lindsie makes. People would do well to remember that Google algorithm updates, or any algorithm update, is there to reflect the change or updated data sourced from discussions or users or search behaviors that have happened online. So, like Lindsie says, if you're optimizing to an algorithm, you're kind of a bit after the fact and a bit too late. Whereas if you're doing really good marketing research, then your marketing work, your content is taking cues direct from the source, which will be rewarded when there is an algorithm update.
Now, what role does empathy play in not just hearing what people say, but understanding why they say it?
You want to take this, Andreas? You want to take the first stab at it?
I think if I'm thinking computationally, I would go with sentiment. So, it's not enough to just ask a question. It's good to take the temperature of the answer to that question. For example, you might look at, what channels are you considering for finding more loyal customers, rather than look at the channels as an answer item. You could look within each channel, and you could look at whether it's very likely, most unlikely, or somewhere in between. And so, whilst that won't give you the total empathy reading in those conversations, you're a lot further along than any other marketer that's not doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in general, putting ourselves in the shoes of who's buying these products or services or whatever it is, the more we can I think the big piece of what we're talking about here is like taking all of the insights that are kind of across the web, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, and understand how people are walking through this world in the different spaces is how we get to them, right? How we communicate the values that matter to them, how we sell them the products that they actually want and need. And that's where that empathy comes into play, right? It's not just understanding and reading data, but it's putting ourselves into their shoes and understanding the process behind how they get to where they are. And we have so much information on that now, right? It's not just gut feels, which I think historically it's been a lot of, well, this is what we feel. There's a lot of data information and conversations happening that we can pull real quantitative data out of to make those kind of empathetic decisions.
Interesting. So at its core, marketing has always started with listening to customers. The difference now is that AI opens up countless new channels where those conversations are happening. So the question becomes, how do SEOs and marketers actually put this into practice?
I think it's working across channels, honestly. I'm having so many conversations with clients where SEO has been kind of its own little specialty that functions within either the development group or the web group, but doesn't cross over and talk to the social team or the PR team. And I think we have to be collective now, because these aren't the days of Google where they're not taking into account what's happening on TikTok. No, ChatGPT, these AI tools are kind of looking at everything. And so we need to be understanding of the entire environment rather than just so focused and have our blinders on. We need to be kind of integrated into all the pieces that are happening digitally.
Yeah, I think that's a really good distinction, because first of all, as an input, AI is capable of taking a wider range, whereas search engines tended to be a sorting or organization of web documents, whereas AI is a bit more wide-ranging and a bit more capable to look at the other data sources, such as online discussion platforms like X and Blue Sky and Threads, etc. I think the other thing is that, and that's on the input side. On the output side, we've seen a lot of SEO content that was heavily geared and targeted towards search engines. To succeed in the AI search age, you really need to have content that is not just good for search, traditional search and AI search, but is actually good for social media. So, for example, if you're doing a B2B article on ransomware, my favorite example, what is ransomware is just not good enough. Your target buyers know what ransomware already is. What they really want is content that will provoke conversation and discussion. I say they, both target buyers and AI, so that there is a discussion on LinkedIn, for example. And so, content to succeed in the AI search age really does have to transcend the traditional search channel.
So I guess I want to ask you a question, Andreas, on this too, is how do we collect all this information? How do we pull all this data into one place and actually show it to clients or make decisions on it? It all exists, but how do we get it all together?
Yeah, I mean, there's several ways of doing it. One way of doing it would be to run surveys, so you could go to a Gallup and ask lots of questions. First of all, screening questions to make sure you've got the right target buyer profile. And, for any given topic, you could run those questions. The other alternative, which is what we do at Artios, is that we've built technology to data mine conversations at scale on a daily basis. And then what we do is when we take on a project, we subset for the target buyer. So we get the target buyer profile, and then we do some data enrichment on top of that, which maximizes the confidence interval that the opinions that we're going to feature or the analysis of those opinions we're going to feature for a client's content report on what their target buyers think is maximized, because we want to make sure that whatever content reports that we produce pass the fact-checking algorithms of AI. And they're only going to do that if AI can see that it's going to generalize well in the real world, i.e., 6 to 9 times out of 10, or maybe 10 times out of 10, it will land. And that's how you secure the confidence of AI to get your brand featured and recommended.
So I have one more piece to add to this, and I guess food for thought. I had a client come to me and we had a very similar conversation here. And she said, well, if we can do this, can a competitor do it against us? Can they feed out information that is anti-us, right? Whether true or untrue. And how do we prevent it? And I'll tell you what my answer was, but I'd be curious if you answer the same. I told her, unfortunately, it is absolutely possible at this point for somebody to feed bias out into the world and have it be picked up as truth. There's just not a lot of controls on it. And honestly, the way to prevent it was kind of I don't know that there is a way to prevent this other than keeping our feelers out of these things existing. But would you have answered that any differently?
Yes. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. The defense is quite expensive. If you tell AI enough truths, then you can tell it one lie and it will believe that one lie. So the real best defense is to make sure that you're very active in terms of producing content reports, so that it's very hard and expensive for someone to say anything negative about you. And the reason why I know quite a bit about this is because although I'm not as well known for this, I do online reputation management. So I believe in a previous company where I worked in the same as Steffen, we did a bit of reputation management and made all the kind of undesirable stuff go away. Probably best we don't say more to avoid getting sued.
You just have to have one more different opinion out there than the others to push them down. That's just in the end what it is. And it's a little bit reflective of how life these days is, right? Anyone out there could say something and it's being picked up and amplified, whether it's true or not. And then it's about the other voices that understand that it's, for example, not true, to make sure that that doesn't surface enough so that people start believing that, right? But it's a little bit like fighting against windmills, I would almost say. Now, once we know what people are talking about, bringing us back to kind of data mining conversation topics. Once we know what people are talking about, the next challenge is organizing those insights into themes that serve both machines and humans. Now, how do we balance entity-driven clusters that AI recognizes with story-driven clusters that resonate with people? Andreas, why don't you go?
Okay, so just building on what I was talking about earlier about data mining active conversations online, you would then do is, after you've now enriched that audience, that target buyer, so that you've got a data set of conversations solely being had by a target buyer, then what you would do, you would cluster them. Now, in theory, if these are discussions being had by a target buyer, it means that they should be heavily aligned to what it is they want to talk about, or the topics. It should be a lot easier to demarcate into different topics. Now, when we talk about entity-driven clusters, I know there's a lot of talk online, about all these tools that do query fan out and all these buzzwords like vector embeddings and all of that stuff. Personally, I don't really buy it. I think it's a bit like, what we talked about earlier. If you're optimizing towards an algorithm, you're really behind. That's what Lindsie said earlier, and I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm seeing the same 10 blue links SEO approach being used to GEO or AI SEO, where people are trying to reverse engineer or trying to dig into the words of a website to work out what those, prompts or target keywords or target prompts should be. And And the issue with that is it doesn't come from your target buyer, the data generated by a target buyer. It comes from, something a machine generated, which is derivative and diluted anyway, or it's analyzing your existing content. Well, I would have thought the discussions being had online are far more reliable as a sensor for what your audience cares about, and therefore what your AI cares about, because AI search is data mining those conversations too. Therefore, I see entities as something you optimize after the fact. It's something to help AI search and search engines break down, to help them digest and understand what it is you've put out there on behalf of your client, rather than something that, it's a bit like the tail wagging the dogs rather than the other way around, if you know what I mean.
And this isn't new. Again, this is something we've been talking about, topical entities, I feel like, for the last decade, honestly, in SEO. It's kind of been the core way that even Google functions for a long time. But SEOs have gotten really stuck in keywords and breaking like the fact that we optimize for individual words. We have to break it. We have to break it. And, we still get clients coming in and say, I want to rank for this keyword on page 1 or number 1. And it's like, no, we need to pull out of that. And it's not this, I think your GEO AI space is pushing it even more in terms of important, but this isn't new. This has been how we should think about SEO for a very long time.
Yeah, I get asked questions like, okay, so what's the search volume on this? And I'm just like, that we don't work that
Why?
way. We yeah, exactly. Why? And that's such a very, even in traditional SEO, I wouldn't rely on the, search volume numbers that are clearly there to maximize the revenue per click of Google Ads.
I think in one of the previous episodes, I think it was episode 1, Lindsie talked about, it's not about the search volume, it's about how many actions are you actually able to create for the activity you do. Actions being, are you selling the products? Are you selling more products due to the efforts that your SEO team is doing? Are you creating more leads, quality leads also? It's not just leads. Are they quality? Are you able to close them? That's what you should be worried about, or that's what you should look at. If and not, am I going to get 2 million impressions in it? Well, if you get 2 million impressions and no one comes through to your site, you have nothing. You literally just have an impression.
I think with our hand is forced now that we're getting less clicks, but at least those clicks aren't empty calories. They're actually, if they're through, there's a very high chance that they're going to do something with you.
Yeah, the quality of clicks now, and I think that's something we've maybe touched on, but when people are getting to your site now, they're typically more informed, more educated on what they want to do, and more likely to make an action. So as much as there's a lot of like, I'm losing all of my traffic, this is terrible. It's like, well, we need to go back and listen to episode 2 where we talked about reporting and how we do those things, because it is so much more about the right people and the actions in which they're taking.
Lindsie, when we talk internally with clients, and we identified a lot of the traffic clients get comes from blogs, and that's more informative, but it's not really a place where people naturally create a lead or buy a product. It's kind of this new approach helping us to get more traffic to the pages where people actually can take actions, which means downloading white papers, case studies, or booking a demo, or buying a product.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that people are doing it in different spaces. So traffic to blogs is diminishing, but the value of content is not diminishing. We're just doing it to educate and inform things like ChatGPT and the AI mode. And that information still needs to exist, but are people clicking on it and reading it? Probably not, at least not to the level that they would have a year ago at this point.
Okay. Now, should SEOs think as much about emotions and aspirations as they do about search data?
Oh, I mean, we're marketers, right? Like we're advertisers, we're salespeople. Like we have to think about how people feel and exist.
I would say yes. I have a different way of answering that.
We're different people. It's okay, Andreas.
Yeah, cool. So the way I think of it is that when you're doing all that kind of data mining or surveys, say you run a survey with Gallup and you get all this data. I think it's really healthy if you have the business principal or expert commenting on whether they agree or disagree and using their own experiences. So you get both the qualitative and the quantitative captured in the report. And it makes the report look more neutral and more of a discussion piece as opposed to a kind of, this is our company, this is our take on what's going on in topic X. And it can give a very one-sided view, which doesn't prevent you from getting into AI, but it certainly won't get you cited as much. And that's what we've seen when there's disagreement. If you think about EEAT, you've got the experience, which is the experience of the internet. You've got the authority of the platforms where that experience was data mined from. Trust, let's just say it's a proxy for your domain authority. Then your expertise is basically the business principal or thought leader commenting or qualifying what the survey research data says. And I think that helps round up or perhaps adds the emotional component or the qualitative component, at least, in that report.
Now, AI can surface ideas quickly, but without validation, those insights risk being nothing more than noise. The real skill is grounding AI outputs in actual human behavior. How do we test whether AI suggestions reflect reality, whether through GA4, CRM data, or direct customer conversations?
No, I think I do. I agree with it. I think we have to, I think there's two levels of validation. One with pure data. So looking at CRM data, looking at what's happening in the back end, like we talked about. But then I think there's also a second level of validation, which is like what we're seeing in AI. Like, let's say you're asking questions to ChatGPT, like there has to be validation on all of that too. So when you say like validation, it's like data. Plus we also need to see, is the information we're getting actually accurate in both third-party sources and first-party? So there is a multi-touch piece to this of how we validate and what we validate, and also never taking one thing as absolute truth. I think it's something we talked to the team about a lot. It's like, okay, did you validate that? Where did that come from? Can we find that in multiple places, or was it just one place that we saw it? Even if it's GA4 versus Search Console versus a CRM, are all of the stories telling the same thing, or are we telling different stories with different data? And then where is our truth, or how do we make these all connect?
Yeah, I think mathematicians love saying all models are wrong, but some are useful.
So what role you talked about mathematics, qualitative input like sales call surveys or interviews play in validating AI-driven insights?
I think the thought leadership, this is where the business principles can come in. Don't be flying solely on data. Qualify. While humans are not always correct, when you've been in the business or the market for 30 years, you've obviously seen a lot, you've synthesized a lot, and so this is the value add. This is what helps you reinforce your positioning and your expertise in the market.
Yeah, and I think can be done at just about every level. I think we're talking about it as if this is like an enterprise thing. I was talking to a client that's very small. They have a few locations where they sell a single product, and they're also getting sales calls, and they have it all recorded. And I asked, well, what are you doing with that information? And like, well, we don't do anything with it. It's like, well, Your website should reflect the questions people are asking. The way you talk to your customers should be reflective of what your customers are asking. This is not a big company thing. This is every company that talks to their customers has data to use. Data doesn't have to mean, a million lines of numbers. This can mean 10 sales calls where there is, 2 points that seem to come up consistently over and over again. So I think that's something that, just to kind of level set with everybody, is possible and realistic with really any level of information you can get your hands on.
Yeah, 100%.
So as we look ahead, the SEOs who thrive won't just be those who master new tools. They will be the ones who bring a human first lens to everything they do. What skills will define SEOs who thrive in the next 3 years?
Such an interesting question, because to some degree, I have no idea where 3 years is going to be for SEO, right? Like, I feel like it consistently changes, right? I think the number one skill of any SEO is the ability to evolve and change and learn and accept that we may be wrong about some things, but we may be right about others. So accepting that just because you've done this successfully for however many years or months or whatever, being able to accept that you could very well be wrong tomorrow is the greatest skill somebody could have in this field.
I've got a bit of a bias towards data, obviously. So, I mean, given what's working today for AI search, I think it definitely goes without saying the ability to be a bit of a software engineer and technologist, to build infrastructure that can help you extract and make sense of those conversations. It puts you back in the driving seat again as to advise on what content we should be creating. And I would even say that AI has kind of re-empowered the SEO, because 25 years ago, the SEO could pretty much have a say on everything, what content gets created, how the site gets optimized, where you get which sites to contact for coverage or backlinks and things like that. And then it seemed that power is receding and fading as more specialist teams have risen. But because of the increased challenge placed upon SEO or digital teams by AI search, with the content quality thresholds being much bigger and larger, I think, SEOs, if they master the software engineering side of it, they're going to be, and the data science side of it as well, they're going to be in a really powerful position again to sort of say, oh, and by the way, this is not just for AI search, this is going to impact organic social and other organic content channels. Naturally, you need to be a good marketer as well. So I think you're going to definitely have to be a bit of a market researcher. If you're working in the States, you'll need to cover the basics, like how do I put together an American Marketing Association compliant survey, stuff like that. So the SEO the future, or the SEO today will definitely need to change their skill sets. I think, the days of spreadsheets and analyzing, what makes one website rank better than the other, that's way gone.
Now, before we come to the end, what is one human first piece of advice for SEOs learning AI tools? Lindsie.
So one piece of advice is that we can't trust everything that we see in these AI tools either. I think I see a lot of SEOs at more of a basic level relying entirely on what comes out of tools, whether it's ChatGPT or SEMrush or any of these tools, as like all they need to know. And then they just regurgitate that information. And so I think the number one thing is being able to take all of these inputs and make a story out of it, and be able to tell what these things all mean collectively.
And theirs?
Well, I think Lindsie put a pretty good answer But in terms of I think you need to be a bit of a ethnographer, to be able to observe how people behave, not just what they do. Really, just as it was within traditional search, where you look to the source. Like, for example, when I was optimizing e-commerce sites, I would follow the money, and that's how I would decide how to, and how you should still decide how to optimize an e-commerce site, so that instead of being aligned to a traditional product shopping catalog, it should be aligned to where the money is. And again, the principle still rings true, but it's just going to be a bit more difficult and I guess more data driven, in the sense that you're just going to have to be a bit more skilled in terms of how do you understand your audience, how do you align your content strategy and content marketing to be aligned to the audience, rather than what I call traditional SEO tools like SEMrush and Ahrefs tell you what they think your audience cares about.
Well, Lindsie, Andreas, thank you for joining me on the Performance About podcast and sharing your thoughts on SEO skills in the AI area. Andreas, how can people contact you to learn more about what you are doing at Artios?
Yes, thank you, Steffen. They can either go to artios.io, our website, or they can just find me on LinkedIn.
Sounds good. And then don't forget to check out episode 1 of our AI podcast series, where we discussed AI versus search, what changed in search discovery and what it means for brands, and episode 2, where we discuss zero-click metrics, what is measurable now, and how to demonstrate ROI. Thanks everyone for listening. If you like the Performance About podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcast application. If you want to find out more about Symphonic Digital, you can visit us at symphonicdigital.com or follow us on X at SymphonicHQ. Thanks again and see you next time.
Performance Delivered is sponsored by Symphonic Digital. Discover audience-focused and data-driven digital marketing solutions for small and medium businesses at symphonicdigital.com.